is the post here. Indiana fans may not like it. She's named after Cece. Now, Caitlin Clark, we all know, went to Iowa, and Iowa have been killing it right now in women's basketball, but she's starting to show love, man. Indiana is really starting to grow on her. She said, hope he scores 3 touchdowns Monday night. Big Indiana fan Monday night. So Caitlin Clark let the world know she's going to be a big Indiana fan.
Watch that carefully. Caitlin Clark just publicly showed love to Indiana University football, naming a specific player and predicting 3 touchdowns. This is the same person who spent 4 years building a legacy at Iowa. And if you think that's just casual social media activity, you're missing what's actually happening here. Because this represents a fundamental shift in how Clark is positioning herself, and it's creating tension with a fan base that thought they owned her forever.
Think about the Bears, which is crazy, because I'm actually in Chicago right now, and it was crazy out here last night, and it was freezing. Now, the Bears played last night, and they had magnificent game, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. She stated the Bears are insane, and that was because of
There it is. She's calling the Bears insane after Caleb Williams's fourth-quarter throw. And here's what matters about these seemingly random social media moments. For months, critics hammered Clark for being too quiet online, for not engaging enough, and for letting her brand go stale during the WNBA's extended absence. Now, she's active again, but she's not playing it safe. She's picking sides in college football rivalries. She's commenting on NFL games. She's building relationships with Indiana athletes outside of basketball. Every single one of these moves is calculated, whether consciously or not, because Caitlin Clark hasn't played a meaningful basketball game since July. That's 7 months of her sitting on the sidelines while CBA negotiations drag on with no resolution in sight. And the longer this lockout continues, the more she needs to stay relevant without actually playing basketball.
Focus for the Fever coach. So basically, it looked like Caitlin Clark could be calling out Stephanie White. Man, Caitlin Clark has joked about one of her Indiana Fever coach's emphasis on defense, bruh. It's that it's hard to poke holes in Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark game. Despite being just 23 years old, she is one of the most talented offensive weapons in all of basketball, men's or women. I repeat, that is.
Now we get to the real story. Clark just posted about Brienne January putting young players through defensive slide drills for hours, and on the surface this looks like a lighthearted joke between teammates. But pay attention to the context here. The Indiana Fever under Stephanie White became a defense-first team. That was the entire identity shift from the previous season. And Brienne January, as a 7-time WNBA All-Defensive Team selection, was brought in specifically to transform the defensive culture. Here's where it gets complicated. Caitlin Clark is one of the most elite offensive weapons in basketball, period. Not just women's basketball, all of basketball, but her defense has been a consistent criticism throughout her career. Fans have called her out for loafing on defense, for falling asleep on rotations, and for allowing easy buckets because she's conserving energy for offense. That's not unusual for offensive superstars. LeBron does it. Steph Curry does it. But when your team's entire identity becomes defense, and your assistant coach is a defensive legend, drilling players for hours, that creates an interesting dynamic.
Her logo 3 and pretty much the way she uses her mid-range game and the way she could toss the basketball around coming off assists. Now, however, this is not to say that Caitlin Clark is the perfect basketball player. She sometimes forces things that aren't there. Now, if you guys don't remember, Caitlin Clark was leading the WNBA in turnovers for quite some period of time. I believe Skip Bayless actually talked.
The article frames this perfectly. Clark couldn't stay healthy during the 2025 season, limited to just 13 games because of various soft tissue injuries. And this is where the defensive emphasis becomes relevant from a completely different angle. Because soft tissue injuries, the kind that plagued Clark all season, often come from one of 2 places. Either you're not conditioned properly, or you're being asked to do things your body isn't prepared to handle. Now, think about what happens when you take an offensive-minded player who's never prioritized defense, and you suddenly make her buy into a defensive system that requires constant movement, quick rotations, and physical engagement on every possession. Your body has to adapt to entirely new movement patterns. Different muscles get stressed, different demands get placed on your conditioning, and if that transition happens too quickly, soft tissue injuries start piling up. Hip, I'm not saying the defensive focus caused Clark's injuries, but I'm saying there's a connection worth examining between a dramatic system change and a player's body breaking down repeatedly throughout a season.
Our critics that have called out Caitlin Clark defense, we all could agree on that. The article goes on to say, in fact, Clark has gotten some criticism from fans about being a loaf on defense in the past, which has led to her falling asleep at the end and allowing easy buckets. Most superstar players, besides like Kobe and Michael Jordan, typically don't play defense, man. Sometimes LeBron, you will see him running down the court beating balls off the hoop, but he loafs too, bro.
Here's the part that should concern Fever fans. Clark led the WNBA in turnovers for a significant portion of the season. Skip Bayless talked about this on Undisputed before the show got pulled. Jason Whitlock brought it up when discussing Clark's overall impact. And the reason this matters is because turnovers often spike when a player is thinking too much, when they're trying to do too many things at once, and when their mental bandwidth is getting stretched across multiple responsibilities. If you're Caitlin Clark and you're trying to run an offense, create shots for yourself and others, manage the pace, and now also lock in defensively on every possession because that's the team's identity, something's going to suffer. For most offensive superstars, defense is what suffered. But if your coach won't let defense suffer, then offensive decision-making starts breaking down. You force passes that aren't there. You rush decisions. Your turnover rate climbs. This is the hidden cost of asking your best offensive player to suddenly become a two-way starter. And the joke about defensive slides for hours that might reveal more frustration than Clark intended.
So as you guys can see here, Caitlin Clark commented up on it. Will shared this post here, which I think is pretty dope that she's actually talking about defense and definitely talking about the Indiana Fever getting ready for the 2026 season. Now, something else that has been causing attention is a viral TikTok clip of a gentleman pretty much speaking about Caitlin Clark offense. Let's head on over to Twitter and pull this clip right here up, man. Shout out to Mike. He stated there is no offensive system superior than the basketball in Caitlin Clark's hand. That's why they ran, read, and react to Iowa. Also, the majority of half-court offenses should start with the screen and roll as their primary action with several options for secondary. Let's take a listen to this clip that he is captioning this off of here real quick if I can get this pulled.
Now, watch this breakdown carefully. This analyst is making the case that there's no offensive system superior to putting the basketball in Caitlin Clark's hands. That Iowa ran, read, and react specifically because Clark's basketball IQ is so elite that structured plays actually limit her effectiveness. And he's showing specific examples of how she waits for defenders to reach the three-point line so they screen each other. How she creates passing angles that other players don't even see. How she manipulates defenses with timing and positioning. This is the fundamental tension that's building in Indiana because what this analyst is describing is the exact opposite of a defense-first system. He's arguing that Clark's offensive genius should be the entire foundation of your team's identity. That you should give her the ball and let her create chaos. That structured offense, much like structured defense, actually constrains what makes her special. But Stephanie White didn't build a team around that philosophy. She built a team around defense and structure. And now you've got analysts breaking down film, showing that Clark's greatest strength is improvisation and creativity, while her coach is drilling defensive slides and implementing a system that requires discipline and adherence to team concepts.